Here's the boss. I have 20,000 square feet here and there's only 2 people here.
Morning, Jeff.
Morning.
Hi, Kira.
Uh-oh.
Good morning.
Good morning. Here, there. Good morning.
Everybody's like dressed up and clean and everything. Great.
Not me.
You never have been. Jeff, I have answers for you, by the way. You and
Okay.
He's been on vacation. I want to have a conference call with you next week.
Okay.
Carrie. Okay.
Yep. Thanks.
Morning, Linda.
Morning, Deb. Morning, everyone.
How are you?
And,
Happy Friday.
Happy Friday is right.
Good morning.
big deal with the infrastructure bill, huh?
Yeah.
Morning.
There's nobody doing any work now. Who's going to do it then?
Yeah.
Well, that's a better problem to have than the other.
I hear you. We may not see you, Jeff, for a year.
That would,
Well,
Is that bad news or
That'd be
good
sad.
news?
15 ready to roll.
We're not sure if that's bad news or good news if we don't see Jeff for a year.
Yeah, probably good.
I second the good news.
Yeah.
Morning, Steve. Morning, Quentin.
Morning, everybody.
Good morning.
Scott.
Morning.
Jen, yeah, Jen's on. You keeping track of who's jumping on, Jen? Thanks.
I am, thank you.
Is there anything you don't keep track of?
I'm sorry?
Is there anything you don't keep track of?
My mind anymore, I don't know.
I don't know what we would do without Jen and Deb.
Wow. Jen, Susie, Kristen, the team. Great team.
I love your backgrounds.
Well, thank you very much.
Good luck.
You too could have it if you'd like. We'd share it with you.
I would love that. I think that's a great view.
Yeah. We'd be happy to share it with any of our board members.
It's really well done.
Yes, it looks like it says party behind you, though.
I know, but it says Partner for Work. See, oh, you can't see, but Partner for Work. I guess
Party,
that
party
one.
time.
Jen, do we have a quorum yet? Are we good?
We do,
We do?
we do.
Okay, who's doing all this chatting down here? A lot of chatting going on. Let's see. All right, I guess we will call the meeting to order. Thank everybody for joining us on this beautiful Friday afternoon. What a great week of weather, huh?
Perfect.
So let me start with the CEO search update. Is that a good idea, Jen?
Yes.
Or
Yes.
should I do the consent agenda until everybody gets on? Or do we have it? You think we have just about everybody?
I think we're okay.
Okay. All right. So the CEO search, just to give you a recap, we started with 50 applicants, which was great. Earl was an enormous help. We did not have to hire a search firm. I think we got some really high quality candidates. We took the 50 down to about 12 pretty quickly. Might have been a little bit more than that. The search committee, which was Gabby, Laura, Deb, Will, and Kat, were great. We broke into teams of 3, and we each interviewed all the candidates. And then we got down to 2, and then we re-interviewed whoever missed. We made sure everybody talked to the candidates in depth. The 2 that the search group got to, I think all of us would have taken either one. We were very happy. And you guys should know as well that from multiple candidates, we were told that the Partner4Work business model was something that was very attractive to workforce professionals from around the country. And a lot of it was, I think, because of you. So the willingness for our board to reach beyond sort of the normal Wioa kind of behaviors that most boards apparently embrace, and try new things and create funding opportunities with sources outside of the traditional sources is very attractive to these folks. So a lot of credit to you guys goes for getting so many quality candidates. So we got down to 2. We would have taken either one. We then met with all the foundations. Oops, sorry. All the foundations, and they were the foundation heads. So we got a lot of input from them. We met with Gerald. We met with Dan Gilman. We met with Aaron. We met with we either had talks with or had meetings with some of the business leaders that were interested in the subject, as well as the Allegheny Conference. So we got unanimous, I think, support. And by the way, if you start adding up how many meetings I just described, it was a lot. Jen made sure everybody was where they were supposed to be. So when these guys came in, the final 2, they were back to back for 2 days. And with one exception, Dan Gilman's mother was in the hospital. With one exception, every single meeting went off on time. With these schedules are not easy to manipulate. So Jen did a fantastic job. So now we're down to all the non-search people said we'll take either one with 2 finalists. And then we had meet Susie and Kristen and Jen. I think that's just 3 from the staff, right, Jen?
She says yes.
That's correct.
And I think what took us over the top was that the staff was effusive of their support of the finalists that we selected. And I can't say the finalist name yet, I don't think. I've been sworn to secrecy. The announcement is going to be any day. And the contracts are signed. The effective date the start date will be July 26th. So we're very excited about the process. We're excited about the response we got from the community. There was nobody that we asked about input that wasn't just willing to give input. They were pleased that we asked them. So I think that, we're on a pretty visible stage now, and this is a big hire. A lot of it's thanks obviously to you guys, but Earl's work has positioned us in the marketplace in a way that I've always wanted this group to be recognized as the leader for workforce development and sort of the go-to organization for these kinds of topics. So it was clear that we got that kind of interest from the community. So Laura or Deb, anybody want to add anything to what I said about the search?
Laura, do you want to say something? Is she there? Well, while she's
I'm
waiting.
here. I'm sorry, I was unmuting. No, I think that was a great summary. Thank you.
Okay.
It was a great summary, and I really second what David said about the search committee. Really put in a huge amount of effort, and many thanks to David Malone for his leadership on this. I mean, this was really, really incredible, and the connections he made to make sure that the leadership in the city and the foundation leadership had the opportunity to interview and to participate in this, I think was really important. So thank you, David, for your efforts.
That was important. So he's already doing some work here. He's looking for houses and things like that. And, we have had, and he's willing to have some meetings between now and the end of July, but he'll be full-time by then. So the announcement's next week, right, Jen, the 5th or 6th of July?
We'll be announcing on July 1st.
First, okay, good.
And of course, the board will be the first to hear.
Yeah.
And David, can I just acknowledge Nancy Washington? Thank you, Nancy, for your help. Really great help with, really facilitating helping with taking the candidates around and everything. Really appreciated that.
Yeah, you know, one thing.
Thank you so much. Thank you. My pleasure.
Hey, Nance, that's actually a big deal. I went through a search. It was a public company. And we spent a year. We finally hired somebody. We're all rah, rah, rah. And his spouse showed up. In the first week, she said, I'm not staying here. And he was gone in 6 months. So we made, Nancy was kind enough to make sure that the spouse got to understand Pittsburgh and showed them around. And we had some couple really nice dinners with both the candidates and their spouses, which I think was very important. And clearly both spouses were engaged in the decision and I think supportive of Pittsburgh generally. So Nance, that was a big deal. Thank you. And thanks for reminding me, Deb. So unless anybody has any questions, do you? I noticed Darren's on the call now. And I should have said the only meeting that got screwed up was with Darren. Only one. And I felt so bad. He was gracious about it, but our finalist was on a different time zone and screwed up the meeting, and Darren sat on an empty Zoom call for 15 minutes. So Darren, sorry about that. But
hey, no problem. I'm a team player, right? But I did have a brief phone call, and it was enough. It was clearly the direction we needed to go, and it was a testament to Deb and everyone on the team for putting everything together, and Dave. So I think we did very well. We're going to have a great time. I'm glad to be part of the search.
I hope so. Thanks, Darren. Okay, if nobody has any other questions, we can move on. All right, we have a pretty extensive consent agenda. I think it was in all of your materials. We have the minutes from March 19. We have to accept a $250,000 grant from DOL for our near completers, accept a $75,000 from Jobs for the Future for best practices in workforce, accept $30,000 from CareerWorks for BankWorks. We have to acknowledge the actions taken by the executive committee since the last board meeting, which was to acknowledge 3 executive sessions of the executive committee to discuss personnel matters. That was on April 30th, the 25th, and the 7th of June. Accept a $925 in funding received from the Allegheny County. We have some contracts to approve. There's year-round youth program for Auberly for $100,000. Another one for $105. The Bloomfield Garfield Corporation for $161. City Charter High, $46,000. Community Empowerment Association, $106,000. EQS, $314, and another EQS for $62,660. Goodwill of Southwestern Pennsylvania for $170,000. Human Services Center for $498,000. Jewish Family and Community Services, $84,000. Neighborhood Learning, $271,000. Phase 4, $1,005,000. Pittsburgh Public Schools, $181,000. Point Park, $169,000. And Youth Enrichment Services for $159,000. The BankWorks Energy Innovation Center for $327,000. Redesigned Job Reliant Workers, JP Harvey Associates, $20,000. Career Link Outreach, $24,000. For the EARN program, DB Grant Associates, $1,009,000. EDS for $1,002,000. Goodwill, $650,000. Literacy Pittsburgh, $40,000. For Work Ready, DB Grant Associates, $500,000. Education Data System, $495,000. Goodwill, $200,000. Literacy Pittsburgh, another $40,000. Dislocated Worker Programs, Stacy Woodruff, $20,000. Pathway Homes, Allegheny County Jail Collaborative, $450,000. Industry Recognized Training Programs, we have Swanco doing business at All State Career Schools, $150,000. The Builders Guild, $128,000. Tech Elevators, $100,000. UPMC, $235,000. And for Transportation Earned Work Ready, Traveler Society of Pittsburgh, $250,000. Title I, Dynamic Work Solutions, $1,007,000. DB Grant, $1,007,000. For the One-Stop Operators for CareerLink, EQS, $482,000. Title I, Adult Transportation with the Community Kitchen grant for $215,000. Budget reduction, Pathway Homes, $150,000. Year-round youth, $100,000. We have to approve the P4Work incentive and stipend policy and approve the exception to the Partner4Work ITA policy, allowing individuals to qualify for ITA for the Intro to Trades program. Does anybody want to take anything off that list, and can anybody reread the whole thing? which Jen made me do.
You do it
This is
backward.
Will. I did see a typo.
Okay, of course you would, Will.
It's under the consent agenda, approved learn and earn. There's a 2008. I don't know what that 8 is. It's 8,000 or 800. I'm not sure.
Where is it? Learn and earn.
Like one of the top items.
Yeah. Jen,
I will correct it.
thank you.
And Susie, I don't know if you can say what the learn and earn number should be. I don't know.
Sorry, I froze when Will said that. It's approved. Can you say again what it is?
Will?
Yeah, it's maybe the it's under acknowledge, and it's like the fourth bubble down, third bubble down under the consent agenda, page 6. So if you see approved learn and earn application support center contracts for between 2,000 and there's an 8 with a comma and 00 each. I just didn't know what that number was.
Is it in the
It
minutes?
should be 8,000. That's the minutes from the last meeting.
Okay.
Yeah, minutes. Sorry, minutes.
Yep,
I apologize.
thank you, Will.
Yep.
Thank you. We'll correct that.
And Susie, did you want to explain what you said was an error, Susie?
Yes, my apologies. I missed that we're actually accepting $2.5 million from the state for the near completers grant, not $250,000. So that should be one order of magnitude higher.
Okay. Anything else? Does anybody need to discuss anything on the consent agenda? Great, then it'll stand as approved. Thank you very much. Steve, you want to do the?
Hold on. I'm sorry. Excuse me 1 second, Mr. Mullen. I believe we need a couple of abstentions. I know Marcy and Dave, you've already done so in the chat. I think we need an abstention from Jeff and Carrie Harris as well.
Oh, that's right.
And from Quentin Bullock.
And Quentin. Thank you.
Now, these consent agendas are supposed to be easy. We're not supposed to have any conversation about them. All right, thanks for that clarification. Anything else? Anybody else have? Great, and that'll stand as approved. All right, Steve, you want to move into the finance personnel report, please? Thank you.
For sure. Thank you, Dave. We've had our finance committee meetings. All has gone well. Kristen and her team have done a very good job. So I will turn over to Kristen to review our 2021-22 budget presentation and third quarter financials.
Kristen, you're on mute.
Thank you, Jen. I apologize. Thank you, Steve.
You're welcome.
So not everyone shares the enthusiasm I have for budgets, but I think it's a very exciting time of year. You know, to look at the upcoming budget, and it gives us a great insight of all the awesome work we're going to be doing in the upcoming year with our $26 million of potential funding we have. So a couple things I'd like to point out first before we start talking, and I'll share my screen here so you all can see. Let's see. Can everyone see that okay?
Yep.
Yep.
So one of the highlights, big differences you're going to see in this year's budget versus last year, and I think it's important to point out, is our Wioa funds. So we've chosen to split our Wioa funds based on kind of our youth, adult, and dislocated worker, where in prior year we had it split between city and county based on location. We felt this year it reflects better on how we manage our work, and that's it's showing a better picture on how we're serving our clients also. So you're going to see this new split in the upcoming year. I also wanted to point out, so this year's budget is $26 million down here, and that's a $3 million decrease, about 10%. The primary reason for this reduction is related to the National Dislocated Worker Grant, which just ended March 31st. The majority of the money that we are losing was contracted to providers, so we're really not losing anything in-house. We did have 2 staff members working on the grant. One of the staff members have moved from the organization, and the other staff member has moved within Partner4Work. So I'm going to move down to our next screen here, and this is a comparison of our activities. This column here is the 2021 column, and this is the 21-22 column. So the highlighted blue is the upcoming year's column. And right here is the National Dislocated Worker. You could see that $3 million drop. Here's our Wioa, and I look at the Wioa as a cluster altogether. And looking at it together, we are increasing our budget in our Wioa funds around $1 million. This is due to a couple factors. The state is giving us an additional 1.5, and then we have flexibility. Our Wioa funds are 2-year cycles, so we do have flexibility in what we can push forward and can use in the current year. Our Tanf funding, we are reducing about $860,000. A portion of this is related to the Tanf youth. We're receiving about $150,000 less this year. And then also, again, with that carry forward, we're projecting to carry less forward this year than we did last year. The Learn and Earn program remains consistent year to year. The only thing I wanted to mention about this program is that it splits in our fiscal year. So this program actually starts in April and ends in August, like the programmatic side. Now, obviously, it goes through the entire year with staffing, but the actual program itself is April through August. So this splits kind of like in our middle of our fiscal year, because our fiscal year budget runs July through June. Okay, I'm going to move down to, if anyone has questions, please feel free to interrupt too. All right, this is our statement of activities comparison. So this is kind of going down line by line with our different categories and depicting any differences from last year's budget to this year's budget. So under the income section, you could see our reduction of around $3 million. And basically that is our government funding. I put little asterisks next to the foundation and private contributions and the assets released from restriction. You kind of have to combine those two and look at them holistically. And then there's not that much of a difference, but it's just when we receive the money versus when we use the money. Moving down the direct program expenses, you can see the drop there of $3 million, primarily related to the Midwest Urban Strategies loss of funding there, or funding ending. Salaries and wages, we have increased around $182,000, primarily due to a couple of factors. We had built in a 3% budget increase, which was part of cost of living and part of performance. And then we also have added some positions and removed some positions. So there's a little bit of a mix from year to year. And I also wanted to point out in this salary that we did leave money in here for a high level position at the discretion of the new CEO coming in. So if they choose to hire in a strategic officer, they have the capability to do so. I'm going to drop down to the information technology services. We are about $90,000 less than prior year. Last year, we had a programs outcome system built in and a CRM system built in. We've started using other systems at much lower costs. And I think the CRM system, we have a free version that we're utilizing right now. Under meeting expenses, we budgeted $13,000 less. We felt that a lot of meetings are going hybrid, and we felt that $13,000 was a conservative number to drop since there are so many virtual platforms happening now. But we still did leave about $50,000 in the budget for meeting expenditures. Dropping down to travel and conference, we budgeted $68,000 less. This is primarily related to staffing changes from the prior year. And I'm going to bring over this pie chart. So I kind of just wanted to, this is our revenue for next year of $26 million. And I broke it down basically by each of the categories. And again, you can see the new Wioa splits, the youth, adult, and dislocated worker, which is the gray, yellow, and blue. And it makes up about 40% of our revenue. Our Tanf Funding makes up around 33% of our revenue. And rounding us out is the Learn and Earn sector here in dark gray for 16% of our revenue. Coming down to the budget comparison, and I compared last year to this year, you could see the national dislocated worker drop off there. And then you could see we have a little more in Wioa funding, a little less in Tanf funding, and I think everything else looks to be pretty much stable. Are there any questions regarding the budget for 2021, 2022?
Nope.
Okay, then could we get an action to approve the budget for the 2021 and 2022, please?
Have a motion to approve, please.
So move.
Any comments, questions? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposition? You have your motion. Thank you.
Thank you.
Jen,
We
you
also,
can put me down as a second if you need one.
Thank
we
you.
also need to approve our 990 submission for TRIB Inc. and the Regional Workforce Collaborative. They were in the board portal due to the size of them. They're fairly large documents. If we could get an action to approve the 990 submissions.
Do I have a motion, please?
So moved.
Have a second?
Second.
Any questions, comments? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you. Motion passes. Thanks.
David, I wanted to thank, obviously, Kristen for all of her great efforts here. I mean, the work with the team, the staff, the team, the leadership team in putting this together, and particularly Steve Massaro and the Finance Committee. I mean, I know this has been a big lift the last few months, so really appreciate all of your efforts.
A lot of moving parts. And it's hard for any of us to actually keep up with this budget. It's just grown. And it's goes so many places. So thanks for your leadership, Steve, and thanks, Kristen.
Yeah, I definitely thank you to the Finance Committee. They're always really great at, you know, giving us the high topics to present to the board, and I really value all their opinions. Very helpful.
Thank you.
So I'm going to move on to our third quarter financials, the dashboard report here. Our cash for balance remains at $5 million, which is pretty strong. Currently, you could see this unrestricted fund trend is heading back down. I think that fluctuates really depending on our draws that we're doing for payroll, rent, healthcare, career link payments. So I think that is typical, but we should see that kind of even out come the end of the year in June. So I'm okay with that because of the fluctuation that we see here. So moving down, our line of credit right now is 0, which it typically is. Other current assets, I'll point out what we've added. I added this fixed assets net of depreciation. This has definitely gone up over the past 6 months due to the purchase of the high wall cubes that we've purchased on the 24th floor and all the leasehold improvements that we put into the 24th floor. So I'm just going to keep that number on here, which over you know, the life of the cubicles and the lease, you know, you'll see that number decrease with the depreciation.
Hey, Kristen, do we have people going into the office full force, or is it kind of hybrid?
So right now, Steve, we do not. We are, Jen, do you want to talk about that?
Sure, I'm happy to. So we are continuing to negotiate a lease extension. And as a part of it, the building management has agreed to do some improvements of the current space. So while that work is ongoing, we're going to keep people out of the office just because it's disruptive and a risk. So when the new CEO comes on board, we're going to talk about a hybrid model, but we're looking at September as a tentative return to work date.
Seems like that's what everybody's kind of thinking, September.
Yep.
Yeah.
Thank you.
ENC's back. They are. At Duquesne Club was full. Capitol Grill's full again.
That's great.
Getting a little encouraging.
Yeah.
Most of them, that may be because the other restaurants aren't open yet. I don't know.
And Steve, I will say the fiscal team has gone in throughout different times of the year when we've had to like come together to do our financial status reports or different things. We've gone into the office, and we'll be going in again in July and prepping for the audit, things of that nature.
Great. Thank you.
Okay, I'm moving on to our accounts receivable. Right now, it's at around $4 million. And of this, you can see this purple wedge here is around 300,000 or 8% is over 90 days. And I'll just touch base on a few of those items. We have collected the Learn and Earn and the PA L&I money. Oh, I'm sorry, and the PA Career Link money of $21,000. We're working currently with the Buccini Pulling Group and Employ Milwaukee on collecting those outstanding AR. And I'll just make a comment that the Buccini Pulling Group is the developer of the Lower Hill redevelopment. And in the last several weeks, we have been in conversation with the Penns and the Buccini Pulling Group about a revised MOU for the first source work in the Hill. And the funding primarily for construction training will likely come from the Penns, not the Buccini Pulling Group. But we feel confident that we'll collect this money. Okay, under current liabilities, we have our accounts payable of $3 million, and of that, $2.9 million are due to subrecipients. And then I want to point out our Paycheck Protection Program. I'm sure I've mentioned this on previous calls, but we have received full forgiveness. So we received $502,000 in total for our Paycheck Protection Program, and we split that between last fiscal year and this fiscal year. And I also wanted to point out our AR cleanup here. This is new that I added. So we did some cleanup of our accounts receivable, and there were some credits sitting out there from 2017 and 18. Talking to the auditors, we removed it off of the accounts receivable and put it under a liability until we feel comfortable moving it into our funds. It's just going to sit here. Under equity, our net income currently is showing a loss, primarily due to the releasing of temporarily restricted funds. But over this last quarter, we should be getting new funds in that will offset that loss. New money we received into the temporarily restricted funds this quarter include money from the Hines Endowment for Early Childhood Education, the National Fund for Industry Partnerships, the Hillman Foundation, and Bank of America for the Learn and Earn program. Are there any questions on the balance sheet side of our third quarter report?
Nope.
Okay, I'm going to move.
Anybody else? Okay, go ahead, Chris.
I'm going to move down here. I'm going to shrink this a little so we can look at this together. Okay, so this is our pie chart. For the first 3 quarters of the year, we have around $18 million in expenditures. And this is our pie chart we're going to look at. So the first ones we'll point out are the Wioa Grants. And down here, again, you're looking at the way we're reporting it this year by location, Allegheny County and the city of Pittsburgh. Next year, there'll be 3. And you could see, PY21 is the blue, 1920 is the green. We've increased this year by about $620,000. And up here, it's the purple and blue. It's about 25% of our expenditures. And program reports that both Title I providers are ahead of this time last year. We are investing more heavily in industry recognized training opportunities to help people prepare for work when they feel ready to go back. I also wanted to point out our youth in-school youth and our out-of-school youth are at 99.7 and 122% enrolled respectively. Last year, the pandemic slowed expenditures during the last quarter of 1920, but we have not seen that pattern this year. So we're going strong. Our TANF here at the orange, we makes up 24% of our expenditures. And as you can see, we are about $300,000 above prior year. This has picked up from the first quarter. Our referrals have been coming in strong from the county assistance office. And the last one I'll point out is our Learn and Earn program here at 18%. And you could see it's pretty much the same as last year, very similar, but it does make up 18% of our expenditures. And one last thing I will point out is this green block here is the Midwest Urban Strategies, the 15% of our expenditures that will not be repeating next year. So this chunk will be gone out of our pie chart next year. I want to point out, as always, we are, coming into the end of the year, and we're working diligently to spend all of our funding down as best to the ability that we can. And I think we're doing a pretty good job. I do believe we will be landing this year pretty well. As I had mentioned previously, I think one of the nice factors that we have is with our Wioa funds, we do have the flexibility to carry funding forward because it's a 2-year grant to us. TANF is another area that the state usually allows us to carry forward, not always, but typically they have. So that's very nice to have some flexibility. Does anyone have questions on the third quarter financial report?
Only to add that you are welcome to increase our board fees if you can't spend all the money by the end of the year.
We'll increase our board fees.
Hey, Kristen, just really quickly, the presentation is just so outstanding, and the mark of a true professional is to make something that is incredibly complex seem simple and clear. And you and Steve have done that for us in a way that I haven't seen before on this board in many years. So really thanks to both of you for that.
Oh, thank you, Laura. And
thank you. Totally Kristen and her team, but thank you.
No, Steve, it's definitely you guys and our finance committee is hands down fantastic, honestly.
All right, let's sing Kumbaya. Hold hands, everybody. Come on.
You're getting emotional here.
All right, Kristen, is anything else?
Jen, I think you're going to take over now with some employee handbook information.
Sure.
Yeah.
So the employee handbook was posted online, also due to its size. And folks will remember we started having this conversation almost 6 months to a year ago, talking about revamping and improving, strengthening our HR practices and policies. So I know he's not here on the screen, but a huge thank you to Dave Copeland and his class at Pitt for really digging deep and helping us really put some meat behind our employee handbook. And really the theme of it all is our commitment to diversity, equity, and inclusion. So I won't belabor, I know we're a little behind time, but I'm really excited. I hope you had a chance to take a look over some of the revised and new policies that we have in place. But at the end, it is really confirming our, oh, Dave's still here and he's happy to help. We're really excited to launch this with staff. We think it will do a great deal for morale, as a zero tolerance for bullying or harassment. And we're just really excited about it. So I'm happy to answer any questions. Dave, I think he can answer any questions in the chat. But again, a huge thank you to him and the leadership team and all the folks Marquise Long, for our DEI director, for really helping us through this process. It's been a long journey, but I think we're on the right path. So happy to answer any questions. Otherwise, I'll ask for a motion to approve the employee handbook.
David, do you want to add anything? Thank you for those comments, David.
Very succinct.
Does anybody else have any questions for Jen? If not, we'll entertain a motion, please.
So moved.
Second.
Second.
Any comments? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Thanks, Jen. Thanks for your help.
Thank you.
Susie, I thought you were on vacation, but I'm sorry, Jen, what?
I was going to tell Susie I'm putting her slides up.
I thought you were on vacation, Susie.
No, not today. Monday I am again.
Okay, I just want to remind you, you attended a meeting earlier this week when you're on vacation. When you're on vacation, you're supposed to not work. I don't know.
We have a very generous vacation policy that you all just approved. So thank you very much for that. I am going to apologize in advance. My internet has been freezing. I am at our office and I think it's just very sleepy because no one has been using it for a while. So if I freeze, let me know, wave or something, and I won't be able to see you. I'm going to jump right into our program update, and I wanted to take a few minutes today just to catch everyone up on what we've done. I think sometimes, given where we are and what we do, we get really lost in the forest sometimes. So I want to kind of pull everyone back up to a 30,000-foot view and talk about some of the really amazing things that this team has done in the past year and kind of where we want to go moving forward. So there are a few key numbers on your screen, and I'll walk you through these and kind of provide a little bit of color. And I do encourage you, if you didn't get a chance to read through the full board update, there are some really nice success stories from our programs in the board book this time around, complete with some pictures. So feel free to peruse those and see the difference that you all are making in our community.
I would underscore that it is worth reading. It's a pretty big deal. Sometimes we forget how important our work is. So thank you for that, Susie.
Sure, absolutely. So the first number in the first column that you see on the screen here is a 72% placement at exit rate. I want to take a minute to kind of step back and say that in a typical month-to-month change in the labor market, we see about 1% point drop, or 0.1 percentage point drop, in the unemployment rate, or 0.2 percentage point drop in the unemployment rate. We're undergoing a labor market like I have not seen before. Between March and April, the unemployment rate in Allegheny County dropped by a full percentage point. So things are shifting very, very quickly. We're hearing from our employer partners that they cannot find people. We're also hearing from job seekers that this is a great market for them because they get to be picky. And that's a good thing. They get to find the best deal for them and find the job that's going to work for their schedule. It's also doing a lot in our efforts to improve job quality. And because of the work that the industry partnership team has done, because of the work that our team who's working on job quality through the Aspen project has done, we're in a good place to be able to give employers back some tools in order to be able to help them with job quality. But what you see is a 72% placement and exit rate right now. What we're actually measured on is second quarter after exit. So someone may be exited because they don't want to receive more Wioa services, and we track whether or not they're placed in that moment, but we're really looking at, 2 quarters later, do they have a job? 4 quarters later, do they have a job? And so we are talking to our partners, Grant and Dynamic at the PA Career Link, who are providing the services to job seekers directly. And what we're hearing from them is that they are making more referrals to jobs from any job seeker, or for job seekers, than they have in the past. On average, they're referring job seekers to 3 active vetted postings this year. They're also serving more job seekers than they were this time last year. Our number of active cases is up about 53% than it was this time last year. So more people are more comfortable working right now. But we're making more referrals over to jobs, but once a job seeker gets in front of that employer, the actual hire rate of those referrals is lower than it's been at any point that in recent memory. It's at about 14-to-1 in terms of 14 referrals are resulting in 1 hire from those employers. And now some providers some job seekers are able to get jobs on their own, or that they aren't referred to from our PA Career Link staff, and that's great. But what we're really focusing on now with the PA Career Link staff is how can we figure out how to get employers who are interested in job quality and match them with the job seekers who want more supports within their employment and career pathway. We've seen a higher median wage this year than we did this time last year. We're at $16.35 an hour, whereas last year we were at about $16 an hour. So that's slowly creeping up as we're seeing wages creep up across the board. And I think it's important to remember that the PA Career Link system overall, with our partners at the state led by Frank, serves all job seekers 18 years of age or up. Our Title I adult and dislocated worker programming serves job seekers that have some sort of systemic barrier to employment. So they're the ones who need some additional case management. They may need some additional training through our partners at the Builders Guild or UPMC or CCAC, and we help connect them in there. But the job seekers that Grant and Dynamic are serving are kind of by definition a job seeker that has a little bit more need for intervention than the job seekers served by the overall system. So we'd expect this employment rate to be a little bit weekly improve and push the system along to improve this employment rate and make sure that we're meeting our second quarter and fourth quarter after exit measures. So the central top or the central column that you see here, the 899, what this represents is some new programming that we've been able to put in place this year. So thanks to the leadership of Laura Ellsworth and Earl and many others on this call, then we were able to bring IBM Skills Build to Pittsburgh. We have done a lot of work with employers on the back end and with job seekers and with our providers to start to enroll people into Skills Build. And when we think about our providers, we're thinking about baking Skills Build into the way that they do business. So Skills Build has something like 20 or 30,000 different courses in various career pathways. And we are really working with employers to make sure that we're vetting the courses, that we're vetting what comes out of the learning management system, and working closely with providers to make sure that they are implementing Skills Build across the board. The other kind of new intervention that we have done this year, and we started it right after the pandemic, is the Hub, and that is an online system brought to us through our Title I providers that we use with all of the PA CareerLink partners. So they can post videos and content on the Hub, and people can access CareerLink services from their home. So we've seen a big boost in the number of people that are using those tools outside of kind of the traditional brick and mortar PA CareerLink system. And that's been great for our ability to serve job seekers where they are. The CareerLinks will reopen to in-person services here in Allegheny County just after the 4th of July holiday. And we expect that we'll start to see more people coming in with the new work search requirements being put back into the unemployment compensation system. And then in September, when the federal UC benefits run out as well, we expect more people will come in. But we have also seen that through things like the Career Services Expansion Project, where we are now out at 8 different locations throughout the county, providing adult and dislocated worker services and services through funding from DHS, then we're able to bring more people into the system that way. We think that this is a positive externality from COVID and something that has driven our system to a place where we're better able to serve job seekers than we would have been a year ago at this time or 2 years ago at this time. Wow, the pandemic has been long, 2 years at this time. So I think the other thing that's really important in that middle column is that we have 7 new employer-driven training programs that we've brought to market in the past year. Am I frozen?
No, you're good.
Susie.
I'm gonna stop my video. Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Did something happen to the screen, or at least on mine? Okay, yeah.
Can you hear me?
It was my
Yes.
fault. Excuse
Yes.
me.
Susie, before you go on, I have a question on the labor shortage, which has been going on for years, but obviously much more acute post-pandemic. Have you all been able to break down in some approximation of the causes of it in terms of, I mean, obviously there were fewer people in the workforce, but how much of it is related to childcare issues? How much of it is related to enhanced unemployment compensation? How much of it is related to workers that have been reskilled and moved on to other positions? Is there any sense of what the breakdown is of this shortage and the causations?
So I froze again. I'm dialing in so that I don't freeze. But I think that I heard you say, is there any indication of individuals who have been reskilled at this point and causing the labor shortage?
Oh, that was one piece. I was just wondering if you have some approximation of the 3 or 4 main causes of the labor shortage. We know there's a shortage of people in general, fewer people in the workforce in general, but do you have a sense of how much of this is related to enhanced unemployment compensation, childcare issues, or workers that over the course of the pandemic may have been reskilled and moved on to other positions, so that some of these positions that are still open, that they've just lost that workforce into new industries?
Thank you for repeating that. So I think it's all of the above. And when we're talking to our partners at PA CareerLink, they are, some of the things that we hear most frequently is that there is some uncertainty until schools go back in session. And, with some schools staying completely virtual into March or April of the past year, then there were a lot of parents who did not go back into the workplace. So it wasn't so much a lack of childcare options necessarily, it was a lack of school and a lack of consistency in being able to count on the fact that the school would be open and that their child could go back to school at that point. I think we're starting to see some changes and people are coming back into CareerLink services as summer approaches. The other thing that we're seeing, as in everything, that as people have been vaccinated, then they're more open to coming back into the workforce. So I do think that, the first part of your question is absolutely accurate. We were in a labor shortage of skilled labor in certain positions well before the pandemic. And we're not going to be able to train our way out of it alone. Being able to get back to where we want to be and make sure that businesses have the talent that they need is going to require not just training and not just removal of barriers for job seekers. It's going to require that businesses change the way that they hire and change the way that they support people after they've been hired. It's also going to take a concerted effort from community-based organizations to find people who are not in the workforce and convince them to come back into the labor market. So I think we're thinking about all three of those things. How do we help the job seekers that are kind of sitting on the sidelines who want to get back in? How do we help businesses retain their talent and kind of do their part to make sure that employees are treated well and want to stay? And then the final piece, how do we make sure that we find, our greatest assets and our greatest resources in the region, which are the people who live here, and get them connected in with workforce.
Hey, Susie, can I ask you a more specific question along that same line? Have
Sure.
we looked more specifically about what explains the fairly dramatic decline in what I'll call the yield rate, the CareerLink referrals that actually result in employment? Because presumably those referrals take into account many of the things you just described, and yet they're not latching on. Do we understand why that is?
Not fully yet, no. I mean, anecdotally, we do, that we're hearing back from job seekers who have gone to interviews that they're being particular. And, the interview, it wasn't necessarily that they were turned down for the job, it's that they didn't want the job after they learned more about it. But I will confess that we started to look into these data, 2 weeks ago. So we still have some more digging to do in terms of what does this mean and how do we solve for it. So expect an update on that in September. We'll keep digging here and see what we can solve for.
Okay, and I think that's really important, because to the extent that our whole system is built to provide opportunities for people, on one hand, we want to make sure that those opportunities are appropriate for the person we're sending that way. On the other hand, I think to the extent that somebody declines an actual opportunity that we have made available to them, we should be able to assess why that happened, because we don't want to be investing a whole lot of time and energy on things that aren't going to work out in any event, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah, you guys are tripping on a very complicated subject, and I'm sure Steve has seen it in the construction world. People are waiting months and months for materials that they used to be able to get in a week, and they're paying 3 or 4 times. So you're going to see inflation. Your hamburgers are going to cost more. Your, labor's just going to cost more, and those are just facts. But also, I think especially with the younger people, they don't want jobs that don't have something rewarding attached to it besides money. And it's clear that thinking is increasing. And I think, the ability to not work and still make money during COVID, let people sort of rethink what's important to them and how they want their lives what they want their lives to look like going forward. I think you're right, Susie. We're going to have to educate employers a lot too. And the basic fact is they're going to have to pay more for labor, period. And that's going to be reflected in everything we buy. We'll see.
We are starting to see that. There have been, we quite frankly struggled with learn and earn recruitment this year, and I'll get to this in a little bit further in my update. But in part, we heard from a lot of young people that they found jobs on the open market paying more than learn and earn could. And we're hearing from Clavons and from Kennywood and from all sorts of private employers that they're having to raise their wages in order to attract talent, which I heard on the way into the office today that the other thing that we're seeing is that companies are hiring more human resource managers right now. And the expectation is that they're hiring more human resources managers because they know they're going to have to kind of scrape for more talent and find more people, and it's going to take them more effort to do that. So I think that hopefully the strong labor market is here to stay, and we can leverage it to our advantage, both to help job seekers as well as to help employers see how they can do a better job of supporting their employees. Yeah. So the final column on this slide, just to keep us on track here and try to make up a little bit of time, is 1%. And normally 1% might not be a good thing, but in this case it really is. That the recidivism rate at Allegheny County Jail is about 22%. The recidivism rate for individuals who enroll in one of our reentry programs is 1%. And so we have seen, thanks to the work of Erin Dalton and her team, we have a case study on our Strive and Career Pipeline programs that demonstrate that there is a clear difference when an individual who has a criminal record gets an industry recognized credential in terms of their outcomes. And we've leveraged that knowledge in some new programming, both for young adults who have some justice involvement supported by the PA Department of Labor and Industry. And we have a program that will begin enrolling individuals on July 1 that is a push-in program to Allegheny County Jail to start training people while they are currently incarcerated and then continue to serve them after they've been released. And so our Director of Special Projects has become really an expert in reentry and reentry workforce services, and this has been an area that we have intentionally built out in the past several years. You will hear from Debbie in a little bit about the broad kind of overarching environment about federal policy around workforce development. One of the things the Biden administration is calling for is to make the reentry jobs programming that has been discretionary programming for the past few years permanent, which would be a great thing for us. We, along with our partners at DHS and the Jail Collaborative, with CCAC, have really carved out a niche for workforce development programming and are building a much better system to be able to serve individuals who are returning citizens.
Hey, Susie, just real quick, that 1% number is really amazing. And I think to the extent, and Deb, you may get to this later, I think it's really important that we socialize that with the other people who are doing criminal justice reform and so forth, whether it's the, Tiemann, Nordenberg / Rand work that's going on and so forth. This workforce should be embedded in all of those ongoing criminal justice reform efforts because it's really, really impressive number.
Thank you.
Does anyone have that kind of number in the country?
I mean, It makes me nervous it's so low, Susie. What's the time frame? I mean, I know we did it, but is it within what does recidivism mean here? It's hard for me to see this slide.
I think it's within a year of exit from our program.
And is it a conviction or is it like,
it's any conviction or a charge.
Okay. So I totally agree. It's staggeringly low and amazing. So I think, like, Susie, we can work to the extent to which we haven't already, we can work together to like really detail that and compare it to some other things based, controlling for risk and stuff. And then, and we can do that fast. And then I totally agree. There's no better return than that.
There's nothing close to that. I've never seen a number like that.
No, I mean, even like we tend to focus on medium to high risk offense, folks that are, very likely to return, obviously. And anything below
below 10 is huge.
The 22% is also low. I don't think that's it. So it just depends on how you compare these things. So anyway, yes, let's detail it a little more, and then let's really get the word out.
If it's true, let's make some noise.
And in addition to getting the word out, I think if you all have built that mousetrap that delivers that rate, that's a huge attractor from major federal funding that ought to be a focus of our attention, because that's really stunning.
Yeah, totally.
We should also hook up with the homeless shelter that everybody's building to become part of their programming too.
Yeah,
That's
we're in conversation with Erin and her team, and I'm on the homelessness advisory board at the county. So we will absolutely do that.
Good. That's huge.
Can I make a comment?
Yeah.
Talking about the overall workforce situation, I think you really have to look, and we should look, at causation, not just, anecdotal stuff, but we really ought to do a study of our area. And we need to look not just at job seekers, but I don't think enough credit or attention's been paid to what's been happening in the workplace during the pandemic. And what we're seeing is a lot of people took off during the pandemic because they felt vulnerable. So workforce is constricted, not just because the economic downturn, but because people were fearful going to work.
Right.
During that period of time, employers scrambled and in some ways took advantage of a lot of the systems that were in place, for example, seniority systems, promotional systems, and so forth, to try and cover the work. And what we're seeing now is that there's, an attempt now as things get better to bring back some workplace rules that treat people fairly. And so we're seeing an outbreak in strikes. We're starting to see, people move from jobs because they're dissatisfied with the environment there. So there's a lot going on in the workplace beyond just those that are out of the workforce trying to get back in. And I haven't seen much in terms of anybody looking at that, employers or people like us that are trying to deal with it from the public perspective. So what I would urge us to do is try to design some sort of a study that might be unique in the country, really what is going on in the workplace, because the job hopping is significant. And it's in a lot of cases, what we're hearing is it's not really so much about wages.
Right.
So that's a driver. It's about dissatisfaction and people just saying, I'm just not staying here anymore. I don't want to put up with it. I'm going somewhere else to try something else. So those kinds of understandings could drive program. And so I would suggest, instead of just sort of taking the media's view of this whole thing, or whatever political side people choose to be on, because it suits their politics, that we ought to really try and get at the facts of what's motivating both incumbent workers and those that are seeking jobs.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that's a good observation. Like, I know the restaurant guys, they're telling me it doesn't matter what they pay, they can't get anybody. People just don't want to be working in that industry anymore. That's bad for me because I got to eat. How would we?
Thank you, Ike.
Susie, do you have thoughts on that? What Ike's suggesting?
Yeah, I think, we have a great director of of data management and can look at some of the BLS data around job labor turnover in order to get some quantitative data on the issue, and then we can start to talk to our employers and our job seekers about the qualitative side of that. Like, I think it's important to look at both to see, you know, what are people actually saying, and then what are the data telling us, and do they align, or is there something that's missing from one side of that story or the other? But I think we can really start to dig into that and bring something back in September to this group.
Well, just, you know, as a wake-up call, you know, the enhanced benefits end in September. And so, you know, we've got a couple months of using that as an excuse, and then we face, you know, whatever the real job market is. You know, we know in manufacturing, we were short 500,000, you know, people prior to the pandemic, you know, in the economy prior to that, you know, and that certainly hasn't gotten any better. So, you know, there's a lot going on. You know, in terms of, you know, where we were to begin with in an improving economy. We weren't meeting those needs. And now we've got the additional problems of the pandemic result.
Are you suggesting waiting to September is too slow?
I'm just saying any data we can get before that would be great, you know, because it'll prepare us for, you know, I think employers think there's going to be this big rush to the doors in September. And I don't think that's going to happen. You know, I think there'll be some, but, you know, I just don't think that's where people's heads are at.
Yeah.
Yeah, we'll start to put our heads together around this next week, and anything that we can pull out before September, then we'll circle back with you, Ike.
This is clearly a crisis. I don't know. It's what all we can do quickly, but I know your days are full already, Susie.
That's okay. We'll figure it out here.
Right.
I do have to keep us on track because we are behind, and this is great conversation, and I will just have one slide for future board meetings, lesson learned here, but there are some really good things coming up on these other slides, and I want to pull you guys along this story with me. So one of the things that we've really been thinking about is not just making, you know, connections with individual job seekers, but how do we take systemic growth and make that a part and parcel of what we do? So just a few quick highlights here. The picture that you see on the slide is from the second cohort of Freedom House 2.0, which graduated earlier this month, sorry. I encourage any of you to come to these graduations. They are really just a shot in the arm in terms of boosting up what we do and sharing out the story of what really works. So out of those graduates, I think that on graduation day, 4 of them had already been hired by UPMC, and several more of them were in the process of working through hiring. And you'll see that is Deputy Chief Amara Gilchrist from the City of Pittsburgh Public Safety Department, and next to her on the slide there is John Moon, who's one of the original Freedom House medics. And so they are very, very grateful for this program and very thankful for the way that we are thinking about moving away from training and praying and moving towards training that leads directly to employment. We also this year have had more corporate contributions to Learn and Earn than ever before. Many thanks to Debbie, who worked the phones tirelessly to make sure that we had support from our employer partners in helping young adults get the connection they needed into internships. And we are working as we speak. My team is emailing me about Earn and Work Ready and how we can make some changes to that system to ensure that we are better serving job seekers who are going through those programs. So the other thing that is a key component of what we're doing that I briefly mentioned is our work with the Aspen Project, which is specifically related to job quality for single parents and making sure that we develop tools for employers to effectively serve or effectively hire single parents and support them after they have been hired. But it has been a joint effort truly with Erin's team at DHS to identify how do we pull the resources of the workforce system and the resources of the human services system together in order to make sure that we are creating that scaffolding of support around a job seeker as they go back into the workplace. Jen, if you want to go to the next slide. We are working on 2-generation approaches with Earn and Work Ready, and we also have a lot of key performance indicators here for you about our youth and young adult programs. We served more than 2,500 young people this program year. That only includes this year's Learn and Earn students, which is so far a little over 1,560. Last year's Learn and Earn, we had 1,610, and as Kristen mentioned, that crosses program years, so you can feel free to add those students in your mind if you'd like to. More than 3/4 of those students, those young people, got work experience, much of which was paid, which we know connects them into a sustained career pathway. And the number on this slide that I am proudest of is this 85% credential attainment rate. So 250 young people who had dropped out of high school earned their high school diploma or their GED because of the work of this board and because of the work of the providers that we are able to fund that you just approved earlier today. The number in red appears to be scary, but don't worry, it's not. The young people are still enrolled in programs. This is usually where we are this time this year with 32.5% employment for OSY. They really, a lot of times, do not get exited until they have achieved employment. And we've made some changes that allow them to continue in the program past the end of the program year. So we expect that number will increase dramatically. It usually is at about 28% this time in the program year. So we're ahead of where we were. And we expect that this number will increase and end up in the kind of high 70 percentile by the time second quarter after exit rolls around. Jen, if you can go to the next slide, you'll see here that one of the things that we're also trying to do is really build deep connections between programs. And in the board book, there are 2 stories of programs where a young adult participated in both in-school youth programming and Learn and Earn programming and knitted together all of those resources. There's also a success story of an individual who was in our out-of-school youth program, earned his GED in the out-of-school youth program, enrolled in one of our industry recognized training programs in advanced manufacturing, and is now at New Century Careers and will start his apprenticeship next month. So we are really trying as best as we can to create a continuum of services and ensure that someone has the supports they need in order to move through from wherever they start into a career. Right after this meeting, I have a meeting to talk to our youth team and our industry partnership team about how we pull those 2 systems together to really ensure that industry partnerships are developing youth programming and creating opportunity to recruit young people into our employers. And then the final slide is the one that I will need a motion on, and that is, you will remember at our last meeting, we approved our local and regional plans for public comment. We posted those plans for public comment. We received very few comments, but were able to make changes and resubmit those plans to the Commonwealth since the last time we spoke. Both plans have been provisionally approved in their current format by the Commonwealth. And we just need to make sure that this board approves the plans. They've not changed substantially since the last time that you reviewed them, but they are posted online. And then after this, we will have a letter signed by Chairman Malone, the county executive, and the mayor, and then submit the plans to the state by the deadline of next Wednesday. So if there are any questions on the local and regional plan, I can certainly answer them. And otherwise, I would just ask for a motion to approve the final Wioa regional plan for the Southwest Planning Region and Wioa local plan for Allegheny County and the city of Pittsburgh.
Is there any questions about the plan? I think we have a motion to approve it, please.
So moved.
Second.
Second.
Any comments? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, it's approved, Jeff. Susie, thank you.
Thank you.
Anything else, Suze?
That's it for me. Thank you.
All right, Deb, you want to try to get us back on schedule. You'll have to go turn the world backwards to do that, but if you could do it at a high level, that'd be great.
Sure. And if you like, Jen, you can take that off the screen and just put us all up. I'm going to have a few more comments to make about our leadership team, but I just want to thank Susie for her incredible leadership. I think you can see from her work that she and her team and the whole team have not missed a beat during this period of time, and that there's enormous work going on. I also think that for those of you who have been on the Partner4Work board for a while, you can see the evolution of the work and the connections and collaboration and the leveraging of partnerships that is being made to really be able to, move us forward. So I just want to personally thank Susie and the whole team for that. So I'm going to quickly just talk to you about more of the 50,000-foot view in terms of where we're going with national landscape for workforce development, particularly around Wioa reauthorization and Partner4Work's efforts around advocacy. Just to remind you, I know you know this, but just to remind you to set the stage, you know that Wioa, which is the Workforce Innovation and Opportunity Act, was signed into law by President Obama in July of 2014. And obviously, you also know that it's the primary federal workforce development law, which establishes Title I, which is dislocated worker and youth programs, and Title II, which is adult education, Title III, which is Wagner-Pizer, and Title IV, which is vocational rehab. And it also set a number of requirements for several other workforce programs, including Job Corps and Youth Build. And so most of the Wioa appropriations took effect July 1 of 2015. And the legislation authorized appropriations for Wioa programs and activities through the federal fiscal year of 2020. So authorization for appropriations, as we've discussed, was extended through fiscal year 2021 by there was a Consolidated Appropriations Act of 2021, and it's expected to be extended again this year. So as you know, the Wioa reauthorization conversations have begun, and the House Education and Labor Committee discussed reauthorization in April and hosted a Wioa reauthorization roundtable focused on youth programming in May. So we have been coordinating with Midwest Urban Strategies, which again has been a terrific partner. I'm so glad we're sitting at the table there to submit comments on the Wioa reauthorization to the Senate Help Committee in April during an open public commenting period. And the MUS recommendations that we obviously gave a lot of input to focused on key issues such as local flexibility, improved data systems, which we've had a lot of discussion about, and integration, and then updates to the one-stop MOU and operator requirements. And, it goes on. I mean, talking about increased funding levels and streamlining requirements for employment and training funding across TANF and SNAP and Wioa. So, we've been at the table. We've been on a number of calls. Congress could make some fixes to Wioa this year to help the system administer the proposed $100 billion training investment in the President's Americans Drug Plan. However, really conversations about a full reauthorization of the law will likely continue throughout 2022. So I just wanted to give you quick update. I want to acknowledge Dylan Moore and all of his efforts with this. It's been terrific. I've actually been on the phone with him and the MUS staff. We've been actually on virtual calls with a number of senators and representatives throughout the 13 states that are part of MUS to, again, give them information, advocate, and plead our case, as it were. So any questions about that? Okay, so no questions about Wioa reauthorization. Just wanted to also comment that in addition to our collaborative work with Midwest Urban Strategies, with our state workforce board, with the National Fund for Workforce Solutions, and many others, our local Ready to Work collaborative, which you remember was started by Earl and Dave Malone and Dave Roger in response to what was happening with the pandemic. It really is continuing to make significant progress in advancing through all of the challenges of the pandemic. The group has been meeting either every 2 weeks or once a month, and just wanted to give you a couple highlights of the last several weeks, which includes the advancement of the Small Minority Owned Business Accelerator Project that's being led by Joel Burstein and Dr. Kevin Lyons of Rutgers University. And this project's going to assess the availability of minority-owned businesses to determine where opportunities exist and where minority-owned business development is needed. And so this study is going to first focus on supplier needs within the private sector, and currently it's serving several major employers in Pittsburgh. And the first meeting occurred this past week. I don't know how many employers, I think 15 to 18, David Malone signed up to be involved. And so they're working away with.
There's 18 so far, and we've added the Penguins and WebTech since. So there's 20 major employers, PNC, Highmark, PPG, et cetera.
Yeah, so it's great work that's being done. And the report is going to be due in October. So a lot of work going on this summer about that. Also, Partner4Work's obviously been very much involved in the conversation through the Ready to Work group on the American Rescue Plan funding that state and local governments will be receiving. And again, with thanks to Aaron Dalton, to Majestic Lane for their, willingness to have us really be involved in a number of brainstorming and thought leadership discussions through Ready to Work. We presented 4 broad categories, actually under Susie's leadership, presented 4 broad categories for potential workforce development investment, including an opportunity youth service corps, which would be like similar to Learn and Earn, the model, but do it year round. Deeper supportive services for individuals with barriers, including working with Literacy Pittsburgh. Thank you, Carrie, to include adult education services. Expanding investment in the industry recognized training program models, which training programs model, which obviously we've discussed before and you saw earlier, which could include like Freedom House 2.0, Perscalis, Builders Guild, and other programs, and then additional investment in job retention. So again, this is, it's wonderful that there's sources of support that are coming locally and nationally. And, I think trying to figure out the best way to put this, these sources of support together into some really meaningful, scalable programs will be, and initiatives is where we are right now. And I also just wanted to note for the record that Susie Pushkar earlier this month did present testimony to the PA House and Labor Industry Committee, during which obviously lawmakers expressed clear interest in strengthening the local workforce development system. So thank you, Susie, for all your strong work.
Susie was the only representative from a local workforce board, so it was a pretty big deal. She did a great job.
Yeah.
Awesome.
And then, yeah, thank you. And then finally, Ready to Work also discussed the Jpmorgan Chase Advancing Cities program, which some of you might know about. Advancing Cities funding is going to provide 3-year grants of up to $5 million each to projects that are focusing on advancing economic progress for Black and or Latino women. So we're obviously working with partners right now, including the Latino Community Center and Vibrant Pittsburgh, and will likely apply together with Partner4Work, playing a supporting role. So, and then this is probably with us playing a supporting role, particularly later in the grant, if awarded. So applications are due next week. There's a lot of work going on there, and I look forward to sharing more information on that when it's available. So I just wanted to give you a high-level overview of all the work that's going on in terms of Ready to Work and advocacy and collaboration. And I have one more set of comments, but I just wanted to know if there are any questions about any of that. So finally, I just wanted to say in my interim CEO role that, you know, this has been a wonderful 3 months. I've really been honored to serve in this position. Really been an enormous honor to work with this talented team. You know, I call Susie, Kristen, and Jen the Fab Three, and they've got under them just an incredible staff. And they really, you know, I'm sure we've missed some beats by not having a permanent CEO, but I don't think we've missed too many. And with a lot of great expectation of a new CEO coming in. The point, and I also want to acknowledge Jennifer Nestor and Frank Stasko. Again, very, you know, really appreciate the support and collaboration. I can't remember, David, whether you said, but, you know, Frank was part of the interview process as well. We really appreciated his advice and wisdom as well. So, you know, it's just been a really terrific time. I guess the point I wanted to add is that, you know, it's obviously a rare opportunity for a board member to step in to see what happens on an operational level. And so I can tell you that, you know, the evolution, as I said before, of this work and where we're going, I think is extremely exciting, especially at this time with, unfortunately, what the pandemic has brought, but it's really brought to focus what the need is for workforce development. And finally, I just wanted to thank the board. I mean, you know, I don't know if many of you know, but when I stepped out of my healthcare role, I did step into doing a lot of governance work. And I can tell you that this board, you know, I don't see the kind of deep engagement as I do with this board. This is an amazing board. And you all, I look around, I'm seeing all the faces now. You're all, whether you're working on committees, bringing initiatives to this group, it's really phenomenal. As David said, you know, Susie and the team have their hands full. And, you know, I wish and I hope with the new CEO we'll continue to be able to do even more than we're doing now. There are, you know, you bring great thoughts, you bring great advice to the table. And so I just want to thank everyone. And David, I just want you to know, I've never seen the kind of board chair leadership. I want you all to know David meets with me either along with Jen or with Susie every week. Every Friday morning we have a meeting. This has been going on since the beginning. And so again, it's David's, you know, he's been a great leader. We're really fortunate to have you. And I'm not saying that as a kumbaya. It's really been the case. So thanks to everybody. And I will end my comments.
Thank you, Deb. And I think you know that we would have no idea what to do if you hadn't stepped in. So thank you very much. You've been great. I know we're running out of time. Is there any other business from any board members or any comments on Deb's report? None. I also would love to ask for public comment. Is there any observers that have any public comment to make? Hearing none, we will adjourn with 4 minutes to spare. How about that? So
great job, everyone.
Great job. Thank you.
Thank you.
Debbie, thank you so much for everything. It's just been astonishing. And since we have 2 minutes, I'm just going to say really quickly, Deb would be sending emails from the team at 5 o'clock, 6 o'clock in the morning. And for somebody who's retired twice already with a new grandchild, for her to devote the endless time and effort to this. Thank you, Deb. We're done.
And 2 multi-hour meetings while on vacation.
You're embarrassing me, and thank you all. It's my honor and pleasure. Goodbye, everybody. Thank you.
Thank you, Deb.
Have a good weekend.
You too. Bye-bye.
Everyone.
Bye.